Swamy, and I'm at the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry in Florida International University. I work in gateway courses, so I mainly teach the large enrollment general chemistry courses, General Chemistry 1 and 2. So let's start by asking some questions. So I want everybody to think and write down the answers to some of these questions. What is the student body at your university like? Do you have mainly commuters, residential scholars, a combination, transfer students from community colleges? Do they face challenges balancing their classes and also academics with work and family? And what other challenges do you think they face for succeeding in your course? So if you could write down in your notebook or on a piece of paper or even on the program in some corner, if you could make a note of what you think the major challenges are for your student body and also what your student body looks like, we can get started. Okay, so who wants to share? What is the student body at your university like? There's a lot of them, very true. Most of us teach large classes, so there is a lot of students. So what is the makeup of your student body like? All three, right? It's usually a mixture of all three when we teach at a large metropolitan universities. And do they face challenges balancing their classes and academics with work and family? I can see many of you nodding, so who wants to share? Yes?
In my case, a lot of them are single breadwinners of the family. So they work full-time outside and they are part-time students.
Mm-hmm.
Actually work their butts off.
Mm-hmm.
They do not have enough time to prepare.
Exactly.
Yeah, some of them work evenings.
Right.
Like night jobs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what other challenges do you think they face for succeeding in your course? What are the other challenges they face? Yes?
Some of them haven't been in college for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
I have some students that come back like 8 years later.
Right. Yes? Financial. So there is a lot of challenges outside just the classroom. They have to figure out how to pay for these classes. And many of them are enrolled in classes a long time after they took the course, which is a prereq for this class. So this is the profile of an FIU student, but technically it is the profile of any student in Florida attending our metropolitan universities. They're non-traditional students, which means they are not, residential students only going to college. Most of them work and go to college. The commute. So most of them are commuters, which means that every day they can spend anywhere between 30 minutes and 2 hours. We have people coming to FIU who drive down from the Keys. Yes?
Don't forget about looking for a parking spot.
Yes. Oh, yes. Extremely challenging. And most of them are unprepared. They don't know what it requires to take a college degree. Anybody who teaches freshman classes like me, when they come in from high school, they come in with a very different set of expectations of what college is going to look like. And of course, we talked about the fact that they have to figure out the whole financial aspect of it. And then, am I going to work or am I going to study? And if I'm going to do both, how am I going to do it? How am I going to manage my time? And it's a balancing act. Other challenges. They got to pay for the books. They got to pay for everything else. Plus, they're taking multiple classes a semester. They have to balance all this, right? And they're very naive in which how much time they think is required to study and actually earn a good grade in a class. They think 2 hours per week per class is great, but that's not the reality. And then they do not have the learning skills that they need to succeed in college. They don't know what they need to be doing. They do things that are not helpful. And then exam anxiety. How many of you have noticed that there's an uptick in the number of students with exam anxiety over the last several years? The numbers seem to be getting bigger and bigger. And this is not a problem that's going away anytime soon. So General Chemistry 1 has been deemed a gateway to completion course. Does everybody here know what a gateway course is? Yes? Who can tell me what a gateway course is? Yes?
Courses in which their performance determines their success in higher level courses. And these may be prerequisite courses for those higher level courses.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dean. So these are mostly taught as large enrollment, big courses. And then students come in with different levels of preparation. The DFW rates for FIU were very high in general chemistry, just above 50%. And students who failed the class fell into 3 risk categories. One, you keep retaking the class over and over. And as you know, freshmen get the last chance to register. So freshmen would get frequently left out. They're the last ones who get to register for a class, so they would keep asking for overrides, while many of the other students would keep taking it over and over. Next, if they fail the class 1, they abandon STEM altogether and go become a business major. There's nothing wrong in being a business major, but we need STEM majors, right? And then the third and the scariest scenario is that just decide to leave school altogether. So this was what we were dealing with. So at FIU, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how my class looks like after I flipped it in spring of 2014. I teach it in a flipped format using POGL-style worksheets. It's completely active learning. We use learning assistants to facilitate in-class activities. I call it POGL style because I post videos and actually have them do part of the worksheet before they come, which is not traditionally POGL, which is why I call it POGL-like. And this is active learning, so they're actually doing things in class. This is my favorite quote from learner-centered teaching. The one who does the work does the learning, and my students hear it all the time whenever they complain. So this is the basic layout of the course. There's a lot of work that they do pre-lecture. They watch videos that I post. They read the book. They do a Learn Smart assignment. This is a product that comes from McGraw-Hill. They do some pages of the workbook. So all the worksheets I created are all part of a workbook, which is now available at the Copy Center. So students just pick it up from there. And occasionally, I may post an extra worksheet for them to do. Once they come in class, we do the active learning bit. I use clickers. I have group activities. I also have what I call individual RSA activities, which my students like to think as pop quizzes, because I believe it is important that they also be individually accountable in addition to being accountable as a group. So in the class, we mainly work on the workbook. And post-lecture, there is a quiz based on what we did in class, and they have some additional problems that they need to do in the workbook. So this is what my lecture looks like. So this was all going great. And so I was very naive when I first flipped my classroom. I thought that as long as I figured out the content, my students would be set, and my job was done. Boy, was I mistaken. So most of 2014 was spent developing content. So I flipped the General Chemistry 2 class in spring of 2014 for the first time. I taught the same class in summer of 2014 for the same time. And then in fall of 2014, the dean basically told me, can you do the same with General Chemistry 1? And I did. So all the material was ready, and then they said, this is so great, let's scale up. So we started scaling up General Chemistry 2 in the spring and General Chemistry 1 in the fall. So until then, the content was set. Now it was time to look beyond the content. And that was when I realized I need to understand how active learning actually impacts student study strategies and allows them to perform better in my courses, because they were performing better, but a lot of them came to me and said, the ones who didn't do well, I don't know what I did wrong. And at this point, this was the point I woke up and said, maybe there is something more I can do to help these kids. So these are two books that helped me a lot. One is Linda B. Nilsson's Creating Self-Regulated Learners. It was in this book group that I actually met the faculty member who would later on become my writing consultant as part of a Writing Across the Curriculum grant. And this is a book that was recommended to me at the Gateway Institute. So these are two great books. These books will come up again at the end. Now, as faculty members, we understand the importance of reflection, of thinking about what we do, but our students don't. So I show them these two quotes, and I explain to them why reflection is so important. So I start them off this way. So I want all of you to quickly think about how you would answer this question, or you can replace it with your subject. Instead of chemistry, it can be psychology or business or whatever. If you asked a freshman student, or whatever level you teach at, these three questions, think about how they would feel answering these questions and what impact it would have on their psychology. And isn't this something, this ties in directly to what Susan Ambrose was talking. You're getting them to think about, why are you here? So who wants to share? What would happen if you showed this to your students? Oh, chemistry is very scary. That's what they tell me.
No, I know, but there are others like math or, or
Yes.
bio, and so I don't know how to answer that question because I don't
No,
know.
so you can replace that with whatever your subject is.
Yeah, but I don't feel the same way because I think that it might be the experience of entering into college
Right.
that might.
Right. So, I mean, this may or may not be applicable, but what it does, at least for my students, is it allows them to talk about their fears. And the way I do this as written journal reflections. So pretty much I'm the only one who gets to see them. And most of them talk about, I've taken chemistry before, it didn't work for me. But I'm willing to try again. Most of them talk about the fact that they are not prepared to take general chemistry. Just admitting that is a huge deal because it lets them know they are admitting, I need to work more, okay? And then describe strategies that you think have helped you succeed in chemistry in the past. So, or any science classes if they haven't taken chemistry. This allows them to see, yes, I can do well in this class. Because a big part of having students do well in the class is motivating them to succeed. And I believe that's what this does. So let's talk about metacognition. It's a big word, and this is one of the most comprehensive definitions I found. I am not going to read it to you. Can anybody else give me a very succinct definition of metacognition?
It's like a reflection of your own thinking, what processes are happening for you to understand a particular concept or topic.
So it's basically thinking about thinking, right?
Self-awareness of your own learning process.
So that's where we want to get our students to be. Because they think they have the right study skills. So you want them to be able to analyze their study skills and ask, am I doing this right? So why use metacognitive writing? Because writing affords one of the most effective means of making thinking visible. Just like drawing, if I want to see what my students think at the molecular level, I get them to draw me a picture. So this allows students to express as a reflection exactly what they were thinking. And it has been shown that this particular writing improves student performance. So I put in for a writing across the curriculum grant, and as part of that, I was partnered with Jennifer Bartman. So Bangor, Downs, Hurley, and Wilkinson did a meta-analysis on the efficiency of 48 writing-to-learn programs. They found that instruction that included assignments requiring students to evaluate their current understanding, confusion, and feelings in relation to the subject matter yielded more positive effects than instruction that did not include such metacognitive stimulation. I said, okay, what if I take this and put this in the perspective of learning how to learn? Will it work? There is some data there is some work that has been done before. Pizzini and Bauer showed that the Dunning-Kruger effect was very much present in general chemistry students, where underperforming students tend to overestimate their performance, while better performing students tend to underestimate their performance. And then Yi et al. Also found that students who did extra work more than the prescribed amount actually did better than those who did not. And we all know why that is. So one of the things I work with is mindset. So who here has read the Mindset book? Dweck. Mindset by Dweck. It is a very powerful book. I would highly recommend that you all read it. In short, it says that there's two kinds of mindset, a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is basically one that believes that intelligence is fixed. You're born with a certain intelligence and it can't be expanded. So these are the kinds of people, if they fail at something, they just give up and quit. The other kind of mindset is called a growth mindset. So they take each failure as a stepping stone to success because they believe intelligence can be grown. Brain is a muscle. If you Google brain is a muscle, you will find the paper. So I assign students that paper to read the second week of class, and the first thing I say is, write a short summary in your own words of that paper. Reflect on a time in your own life when you did not know how to do something and you learned it later and in fact got good at it. So they talk about riding a bike, they talk about playing a musical instrument, just like Susan Ambrose was saying. And then how does this correlate with your assigned reading? They talk about the fact that the brain is a muscle, the brain can grow, so I can learn chemistry, which is what this is. Could you apply what you just learned to improve your performance in this class? Describe what you intend to do. Okay, so, and then I leave them alone for a little bit. So I have a question for you. Your class has just taken their first exam and students have received their scores. How many students come to speak to you about their exam performance? How many? 8. Out of? 8 out of 250. Anybody else wants to share?
Yeah, about the same percentage, like 2 or 3 out of 40.
2 or 3 out of 40, more or less the same. Anyone else? I had one semester where I had 0 people come see me. So do you encourage your students to look at what questions they got wrong and how do you do it?
Exam wrapper.
Okay, explain what an exam wrapper is, please.
Well, you're asking students to analyze through a guided worksheet, basically, the questions that they got wrong, what the correct answer is, why they got them wrong.
Okay.
And most importantly, at the end, what their strategy is for the next exam.
Okay. So Jean does exam wrappers. Any other thoughts? What else do you do? Do you offer students any credit to do this? How do you do this?
Repeat questions on the final.
Repeat questions on the final. Yes?
Sometimes the students are concerned, like if a question is worth a point, I says, okay, well, you show me where the right answer is in the book. Tell me why your answer was wrong and why this answer was right, and I will give you a half a point towards that question.
Okay.
And you know what? Most of them don't do it.
Yeah, I had a colleague in the psychology department who would actually award partial points if they redid the exam and came back with the correct answer. But she had to stop doing it because not enough students were taking advantage of it.
Some did, but not enough.
Yeah, not enough. Yeah. Any other thoughts? So this is the new Bloom's taxonomy with 6 levels instead of 7. And so after the first exam, I actually show this to them, and in class they work in groups to code the first exam. They will code each question on the first exam as to which level in the Bloom's taxonomy it is on. And then here's some other questions to think about. Can we help students become better learners using metacognitive writing about their exam preparation and performance? Do you think this is a worthwhile endeavor, and how could you go about doing this? Do you do anything to ask students to reflect on their exam performance? What they did right, what they did wrong, and what they could do better, more importantly. So our exams are multiple choice, but we do have one free response question at the end. So this is what I get my students to do. So if you see right here, it says, what chapter does this exam come from? Right here, I'm asking students to recognize, do you know where this concept goes? Did you get the question right? Explain why you got it right or wrong. Is this a conceptual question or a numerical question or both? Because one of the big problems we have is students are unable to distinguish a conceptual question from a numerical question. And then our workbook was green this semester. This semester it's blue. So it said, is this identical or similar in concept to something from the workbook? Is it identical or similar to something from the textbook? What about the Connect and the Learn Smart, which are our online systems? And what levels of Bloom's taxonomy do you think this question belongs to? Now, what I want you to do is think about, if you were to create something like this for your class, what would that look like? So I'm going to give you a few minutes to try and create something that looks like this. You may or may not use it. That's fine. Just start thinking about it on those lines. And try to write out something or draw out something. Okay. So, does any table want to share any of the things that they shared with me? Go ahead. Yes.
Me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, what did you say? I'm still talking. What did you ask?
I said you folks were discussing something interesting about incentive.
Oh, we were. So as a chemistry instructor, she allows them to grade their exam questions, correct the exam questions that they got wrong, and get a certain amount. Do you want to explain
Yeah,
more?
so like usually my first chemistry exam does not go very well. What we do is I ask them to do a lot of writing and a lot of reasoning and evidence, even in the multiple choice questions. And so typically it's a little bit lower. And so that first exam, I give them the chance to get like 10% back of the difference. So it doesn't add up to a lot, but they go, and in order to do that, they have to think about like why they got the answer wrong. Like multiple choice, I already give them the answer, so they know what the answer should be. So why is that the right answer? And so a lot of that's because it builds to their future knowledge in that course, and so I need them to fix it. But most all of them do it. But we were talking about like, is that an appropriate amount? Would you do more? You know, because what you were saying, you know, like they don't do it when you offer it. And
Any other table have insightful comments? Yes.
We were talking about how difficult it is when there's such a variation in their preparation coming into these courses. That you may have people who have had a significant chemistry background before they come in, and people who haven't had anything. And how where you start, whether you're doing a concept presentation and having them access the information and apply it, and that's where you focus, or whether you focus on building so that you make sure everybody's on the same level before you do that, and how that can be such a challenge.
I think one of the advantages of a flipped classroom is it allows you to give them some materials to get prepared before they come in. So that's how the flipped classroom has really helped out to level off some of those difficulties that we have had with people coming in with different levels of preparation. Because the videos are up there, and even if they don't know the concept, they can watch the videos and get familiar with the concept. And that has really helped. So here are some writing samples. So if you look here, what the student is also doing is students don't recognize the workbook, the online homework, and the textbook as resources. For them, the resources is the practice exam. They don't consider these resources. So part of my efforts here is to make sure that they start seeing these as resources. And this was a student who came to class, so you can see most of the things that she says are apply, apply, apply. Apply and understand. There is basically no remember here. And then at the end, I asked them, what other sources do you think they might have come from that were not covered in this assignment? And what did you learn about studying for the next exam? And this is worth 4 points. That's all. And they will all do it. Because I tell them, if you do this, 4 points out of their exam grade, for their in-class activity grade, which is worth 5% of their grade. So it's not worth much.
Do you give the point based on completion?
Yes, the points are based on completion. That is very correct. But by doing this, what I'm trying to get them to see is your workbook is not your only resource. Your textbook can be your resource. Your Connect can be your resource. Your online quizzes can be your resource. So a lot of them begin to understand how they need to be studying for the exams.
Let me ask you a question. How do you grade the part with the Bloom's taxonomy? Because we were discussing at this table that sometimes for someone could be applied, but for another person could just be, I memorized,
yeah.
and I know how to plug it in and solve it.
Yeah, whenever they say memorize, we usually pull them out and say this is not memorized. If somebody puts memorize top to bottom, we pull them out and have a conversation with them.
And it could happen vice versa, that someone
yes.
says apply and it's more
yes.
memorized.
Yes.
Okay.
I have never seen that happen, but yes, if it happens, we will pull them out and have a conversation. So this is a student who ended up with a C in the class. They were not there that this activity was done. And then you will see a lot more remember on this student than on the previous student. And also notice, this person did not think that there was enough learn smart. So we did give this person the 4 points, but the learning assistant did have a talk with the student and say, you got to make better use of these resources. There was a lot of learn smart questions in this. You need to see where these are applied. And I usually let the learning assistants do it because they're peers. It doesn't sound as threatening coming from the learning assistant than it does coming from me. I prep the learning assistants, of course.
Can I ask you how many learning assistants you have?
I have 7 right now. So 7 for, there's 1 learning assistant for about 27 students this semester. Last semester, about 30 students, 1 learning assistant to 32 students. So if you see right here, they actually start thinking about, I will definitely not wait till a week before the exam to start studying. Also, I will learn to study more conceptual questions and understanding how they are used. And lastly, not rushing through my exam to finish, but actually read the problems carefully. So rather than, we can tell them all we want, read the problems carefully, underline, but unless they figure it out themselves, this is not going to stick. That's what I realized. So this is from Sandra McGuire's book, Teach Students How to Learn. This is how students were tested in high school, most of the students. And this is how they're tested in college. So students need to be aware that there's not too many memorization questions on the exam. And even when we have them memorized, we will not just have them memorize those facts and just regurgitate those facts. They will end up using the facts in some other way. They will have to apply it to a problem, and so that's very important. So these are just slides that I show my students after the first exam. After they finish that worksheet and turn it in, this is what I tell them. That these are some of the things you came up with, and so this is what you should be doing. So one of the things that I did was I started working with mindset. And one of the major things about mindset is it has a powerful effect on the student's psyche. They start believing that you care more as an instructor. You are interested in their success. So tell your students often that you want them to succeed. We all want our students to succeed, but how often do we tell our students? So tell them I want you to succeed, which is why I am doing this. So this is something I gave them before the first exam. I said, how did the grade you earned after the first exam? How did the grade you earned compared with the grade you expected to earn? Was it higher or lower than what you expected? By how much? Were you satisfied with your grade? Why not? Do you think this test accurately measured your learning so far? Why not? If not, what did it cover that it didn't measure? And what did you learn that was not on the test? Also, what kind of questions did you have trouble with, conceptual or numerical? And why was this particular type of question challenging to you? How are you going to study for this in the future? Now, one thing I realized is even if I don't read this until later, the effect that it has on the student of writing it down and actually reflecting on it is very, very powerful. To a certain extent, you can think of it as a chance of venting. Right? I studied so hard for this exam, I didn't do well. These are the things I studied that you didn't put on the exam. These are the things I didn't study that came on the exam. That's what this part is, the first two. And then the third part is, what are you going to change so that you can do better on the next exam? Any thoughts about this? Yes?
So yeah, I hear that a lot. Well, I studied so hard and I didn't get what I expected. So how do you respond to that?
Well, one of the things, I have stopped getting a lot of that once I started handing out that sheet. Because they are going through the process, and they are going through this process of self-realization that I didn't actually do what she needed me to do or what they needed me to do. So that's one of the things I realized once I started down this path, that I stopped getting a lot of those, I will still get maybe 4 or 5 a semester. I would get 50 a semester before. Now I'm only getting 4 or 5.
So the sheet that you showed.
Right.
A few slides previous.
Yes. And also they do these writing assignments, and they think I care. And one of the other things I've noticed is that they have started taking responsibility for their failure. They say, yes, I didn't do this right. She did everything. She gave us the resources. I should have known how to use the resources better, which I found very interesting because I did not expect that. Yes?
Just following up, I teach physics,
studying, they should be practicing.
Mm-hmm.
They should be doing stuff. And so I tell them, don't even use the word study. How much time did you spend practicing physics instead of studying physics? Because they want to memorize what's in the book or in the notes or whatever instead of solving problems.
Sandra McGuire talks in her book about being in the study mode and the learn mode. And she explains that for students to do well on an exam, they have to be in the learn mode. And she actually has a PowerPoint that you can download and actually use on your students to help explain the difference between them. But they realized very quickly after going through that sheet that they didn't do what they needed to do. And they needed to do a lot more.
So getting to your question, they might say they studied a lot, but if I ask how, what did you actually do, it's usually frequently, not always, but frequently not the way that I recommended they do it. Did you do a lot of practice problems? Did you work with groups?
Right. Right. I know that Scott does a version of the study where he uses a cell phone text to text people and ask them, are you studying chemistry at this point, right? Or what are you doing? Yeah, last few days, what have you done? And he has some interesting studies too.
Can I just add one thing real quick?
Uh-huh.
Because I think a lot of things that, or that I get from my students is that a lot of classes, the exams have a really high stake, right? So if you diminish that, and if they don't perform well on their first exam, then, and they come in and they say, I did everything I could, how can I improve? And then you say, okay, so because I feel like that one formula does not work for every student, right? So there are several things that you can help them, and throughout the semester, hopefully at the end they will get, right? So you can just say, what have you done, and maybe suggest different things that they can do differently. And usually I find out that, especially after the first exam, I always tell my students, like, make sure that if you did not perform as well as you would like, that you find somebody to study with. And I always send an email out to like the top students that got A's in my test, and I say, will you be willing to help other students? And I always get a reply. So I always pair them up, and they usually perform better. So if you lower the stakes of the exam, my exams are only 10% of their grade. So if they fail their first exam, I tell them you can still pass with an A, right? But you have to change what you're doing. If you continue doing what you're doing, you're not going to pass.
We also do a resurrection final, which means if they do better on the final, yeah, resurrection final. So if you do better on the final than you did on any three of your exams, your midterm exams, a percentage of your final can replace the score on that exam. Because the final is comprehensive. So if you show me you learned the material, I'll give you the grade. The lowest, yes. Yes. It's a percentage. Because the final is out of 150. The midterm exams are out of 100, which is why we do a percentage.
Have you ever thought about, after you do that reflective practice, the pages that you showed us, to ask, not individually because it would take you forever to look at the product, but by the tables or the groups, whichever way you have it set up in the classroom, to ask them, after they have done that, to create a test picking and choosing problems from the different resources based on the expectations that they know now they should have.
We tried that one semester and it did not go according to plan. No.
That would be great.
Yeah. So these are some selected student responses. The grade I expected to earn was incredibly higher than what I actually received. The grade that I received was lower than what I expected by 20 to 30% off. I was not satisfied with my grade because I studied too long and too hard to receive the grade that I received. I study about 2 to 3 hours of chemistry every day, Monday through Sunday, and yet my grade in the test did not reflect my hard work and commitment to studying. The grade I earned was lower than what I expected. I was expecting a B, 80% at the very least, and I ended up getting 7 questions wrong, placing me in the D category. No, I was not satisfied with my grade because I know I could have done better. The primary reason for my dissatisfaction is that I realized I didn't take the time to learn the conceptual aspect of the problems, which is what really messed me up. So this is a student right here taking responsibility for their own learning. I feel I did so poorly on the exam because I felt too confident with the material and only started doing the practice exam on the day of the exam. I felt pretty confident with the math problems and completed the practice exam and understood how to do the problems. However, I did not put too much time on the conceptual parts of the material and as a result lacked my performance on the exam. Things I'm doing differently is that I come to the library every morning before class. I watch the recorded lectures and YouTube videos if I have time and complete the practice worksheets that are provided on Blackboard. I don't just watch the lectures but take notes as well. In addition, every Connect quiz, I take pictures of the question, write down the solution, and organize the pictures in my OneDrive for further reference and study material. Organization going on here. This weekend, my plan is to go over the worksheets and try to understand the conceptual material so that I leave time for that too. I can score better on the second exam. So you can see that they're beginning to take responsibility for their learning. So these are the mindset videos. I'm going to skip this in the interest of time. So this is after the second exam. Were you able to predict your performance on exam 2 better than on exam 1? How did the grade you earned compare with the grade you expected to earn? Was the grade higher or lower than what you expected? By how much? Were you satisfied? Why not? And then I asked them to choose a new study strategy. I'm asking them if they tried it. Did you find the conceptual questions as challenging as you did on exam 1? Did you do anything differently? How did you prepare? So, all right. I was able to predict my performance on exam 2 better than on exam 1. And this is a theme that I saw. The grade I earned on exam 2 compared to the grade I expected to earn was higher than expected. I expected to get around 80% but received a 99.5%. This was a person who got a 60 on the first exam. I was very satisfied because aside from the fact that it was better than expected, it also showed me what real studying can get me. It showed me if I study the material, I can indeed achieve a good grade. And they talk about the new strategy and how it had a better effect on their test preparation. They did not find the conceptual questions as challenging because they actually did the work. And then they say they're doing even better on exam 3. So we're building the students' confidence here as we go on. So notice that they were deeply satisfied with their grade as they had a very low score on exam 1. This was also a student who got a 60 on exam 1. They did much better on this exam. 30-point difference, as you can see. So they did try a new study strategy. They watched recorded lectures and did practice problems before class every day. This is what they should be doing, but I put this as one of the suggested strategies so that they would try it. They did not find the conceptual questions on exam 2 hard than on exam 1. The secret is exam 2 is actually harder than exam 1. But they did not think it was as hard because they were taking notes, they were writing down important details, they were actually learning the way they were meant to learn. So what I'm trying to do is thinking about thinking, get them thinking about ideas, resources, strategies, and also self-regulation, memory, and skills. They have to be able to realize, I don't understand this. I need to go out and seek help, which in many cases students don't know. So this, I just wanted everybody to see this. The first time I did this as extra credit, okay? And if you see, the A students did 3 blogs. The students who really needed the help, which is the D, F, and the drop students, did not do as many as the blogs. So the next time I did this, I made this part of the course grade. And that really helped. So I'm also using shorter writing prompts because the last one was very long. And I'm trying to get surveys where the students can take before and after an exam on Canvas and tell me what are the resources that they're using. We got this. So this is an effect on the passing rates. We were doing very well. This is where I started it in General Chemistry 1, and then the passing rates actually went down in fall 2017. Can anybody tell me why?
Hurricane?
Yeah, hurricane. Irma. But as you can see, this is where I started doing the metacognitive activities, and our passing rates for General Chemistry 2 have increased every semester. And I also get lots of emails from students telling me, thank you for teaching me how to study. I'm a more confident learner. This is helping me on my other classes. And they all talk to me about how important it was to understand mindset. They are asking themselves, do I have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset about this? And taking on harder tasks. Dean Susanna Rose, Leanne Wells, and Isis Artsy have all been very, very important in helping me develop the active learning classroom and also encouraged me as I continued with this work. Former chair and associate chair of the department who were also very encouraging. This is my collaborator from Writing Across the Curriculum. Robert Wood was one of my learning assistants. When I started this project, I did not have a background in psychology, but I was very lucky that I had 2 learning assistants who were psychology majors. And so they helped me a lot with this. And all these wonderful people from the STEM Transformation Institute, and of course, my students. And here are the 4 books.